Okay, so let's talk about SEO keywords and content. So this is not an SEO class by any means, and so those of you who will take social media and web strategies will learn more about and actually become certified in Google AdWords and some other SEO techniques. But you have to understand how SEO keywords and content really affect websites, because without understanding that, when you go to make recommendations for how the website needs to be fixed, it might be a little bit challenging. And so when we take a look at getting started, the first thing that you want to do, if you haven't already, is read chapter 6, because it really goes through all of in our day. It really goes through a lot of this stuff. Okay, and so the rest of the stuff that I'm briefly going to hit on really helps facilitate or lay the foundation for the rest of what we're going to talk about. And so the discussion begins with something that are pretty familiar to everybody, I would assume, which is a URL, right? And so a URL determines your data strategy, or it's determined by your data strategy. It really includes your customer session. And so if you think about the URL being the address, and that's actually what it's called, right? A web address. If you think of it like the address of your home, a customer session would be like a customer visit, okay? And so the visit's defined a little bit differently based on what platform you're using. So Google Analytics defines it one way, your internal site server might define it another way, but regardless, the URL determines this is a session, so this is a visit to my home. A cookie strategy, so it helps us understand and determine cookies, and what cookies are little pieces of information that are left behind on a individual's browser or computer. And so when you come back to a site, similar content might load, or like content might load. For example, the old version of mercyhurst.edu had the capability that if you would leave, let's say that you landed on mercyhurst.edu, you would search for intelligence studies, you left the site, came back 3 days later. If you had cookies enabled, what would happen is that cookie would register the website. It would register with the website, mercyhurst.edu, and it would say, hey, listen, this person has been on our site before and had visited intelligence studies. And the cookie would then create a process that would then display to you as a visitor only information on intelligence studies, or a lot of information on intelligence studies. So the picture on the front page would be Intel, and the news, the first news you would see would be Intel, so on and so forth. And so we use cookies to customize the experience for each of our visitors. The other thing that URLs determine are the abilities to get views, right? So your URL, if it's not written correctly, will not allow people to get to your website. And so file naming conventions become really important, because if you mistype a URL, if you have the wrong URL, obviously people can't get to what they need to. It's also important for metadata, and we'll talk about metadata a little bit more later this week. But the metadata, the information that's really being driven or driving your website, it's really important that we have a good understanding of URLs to create that metadata, the behind the scenes and the reasons why our website looks the way it does. And so one of the things that you want to understand with URLs is the site structure. And so you want to ask yourself, is the site structure intelligent enough to organize your data? And so one of the things, I'm working with the vendor right now, and their URLs are organized in a very well, they're not organized, we'll just say it like that. And so what happens is when the spiders get on your website, the spiders are expecting to see a certain thing, a certain way of organizing. And when they get there and it's not organized in that way, they become confused. And so what does that result in? It results in your information not being organized well. And when your information is not organized well, then the spiders don't organize it well in their databases. And when it's not organized well in their databases, when people go to search for you, it's really hard for it to retrieve that information and display it to customers in the way that you want it to be retrieved. So generally, we try to make our search engine spiders pretty happy. We want them to be able to find the information very quickly, very easily, and be able to display it correctly to our end user. So one of the things that I'd like you to do is to go onto the site that you chose, which is your website for your client, and I want you to look at the parameters that make the page unique and what parameters exist simply for tracking. Okay, so go into, see if you can go onto the website and make that determination. So again, what parameters make the page unique and what parameters simply exist for tracking, and use that chapter 6 in the day in, or an hour a day, and see if you can do that. The other thing that you want to pay attention to are cookies. You want to ask yourself if they're set up correctly to collect data. And I know that chapter 6 talked a little bit about the cookies and how to make that determination. But one of the questions you're going to want to ask your IT specialists are, are these set up? What are we collecting? How is that being used? And again, if this was an advanced analytics class, we'd probably dive a little bit deeper into that about how you can utilize cookies. Now again, chapter 6 does touch on it. I believe there's another article in the other textbook that touches on cookies. So if you want to play around with that in your reports, you certainly can do that. One of the things with keywords, and we'll spend a little bit more time with keywords in another section, but with keywords, you want to ensure your company is reporting your key phrases. And so this goes back to your business goals, right? We're not talking about, when we talk about keywords, it's plural. We're not talking about keyword, right? So people search for Mercyhurst, of course they're going to find us. But you need to ask yourself, what do we want to be ranked for? So when people search for us, what key phrases do we want, when they search for those key phrases, do we want Mercyhurst to appear to them? And if it's not, right, and this is determined by your business goals, it should be something that's determined in collaboration with your larger marketing strategy. But if you're not being found for things that you want to be known for, say for example, if Mercyhurst wants to be known for study abroad, and we look at geographic targeting, because you can do this, right? So obviously Mercyhurst in California isn't going to be ranked for international traveler study abroad, but among Cleveland, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, we want to be ranked high. And we go and search for that key phrase in those geographic areas, and it's not showing up. Well, there's something that we need to work on. And there's a couple ways that we can fix that, some of which we'll talk about today, and some of which we'll talk about in some other classes. So one of the things that we can do is make our site friendly. And so when our site's not friendly, these keywords aren't going to be able to be displayed, right? So the biggest thing is all of this conversation, so to kind of contextualize this, all of this conversation is about us showing up in the search engine, right? Because when people can't find us, they can't come to us. And so when they can't come to our website, then obviously we don't have business. And so what I want you to do is not type in .com here. I got a little excited. What you want to do is you want to type site, and this is, you actually want to start here typing. So site:/mercyhurst.edu in the search box of search engines. And so try Bing, and try Yahoo, and try Google, and see what happens. And so now that result, so go ahead and pause the video and do that. So the results that you found are interesting, right? So you found some results, but I guess the more important thing, or the first step that you would really need to know, is how many pages are actually in your website. And there's some tools that we're going to talk about in another video this week that will assist you in finding that out, about how many pages exist. But you really need to know from your website provider, from the CMS system, how many pages are actually in your website, because all these free tools can actually lie to you, as can Google Analytics for that matter. But what you want to do is you want to find out how many pages are actually in your website, how many pages are being indexed, and then you want to compare the two. If they're not close, something's amiss. And so by close, I mean if you have 700 pages in your website and only 100 are being indexed, and by when I say indexed, it means what the results from site:/mercyhurst.edu is showing. So if only 100 are showing up, that's basically Google telling you, or the search engine telling you, Bing telling you, hey, we only have 100 of your pages in our index file. So if you have more, you should probably let us know about that. The other thing you want to check are snippets. And we talked about what snippets are. But you want to check the snippet on each search engine. So think about marketing. This is a very marketing message that your customer is going to see. You want to make sure that it's descriptive of exactly what you want them to find. Now remember, this message is going to change based on the search, right? So Google does a really good job of showing you kind of what you're looking for when you search. So if I search for academics at Mercyhurst, it's going to show me academics at Mercyhurst, and that might even be the page title if that exists. But you want to think about, when you're writing this, you want to think about marketing to your consumer. What are they searching for, and what do they want to find? And the better you get at this, the more relevant your search results are going to be for your end user, your customer. One of the things that you think about also with this in the snippet checking is the meta description tag in the page header, which is in the code. And so when we're looking at the code for the website, you want to be thinking about, is this meta description describing what I need it to be describing? You also want to look at the content on the page. Is it relevant to the search? So again, if I search for academics at Mercyhurst and I get the, let's say, the Institutional Review Board page, well, that's related to academics, but it's probably not what a 17-year-old is searching for, because IRB, Institutional Review Board, is really something that you deal with once you're at the university, and normally students aren't looking for that at 17. You also need to realize that you can't control the snippet completely. Okay, so we have this open directory. We talked about the open directory a little bit before. The open directory are gatherings of information that Google and Bing, Yahoo have kind of found on their own. We can actually tell these search engines to not look at that, and in fact use what we submit to the search engines instead. And so to do that, and this is something, if you go into the code of the website and you search for NOODP, or if you're for Google, or for Bing, NOYDIR, and this is what it would look like, right? So it's telling meta name, robots, content equal, or this is meta name, robots, content equal NOODP. And what this is telling it is, hey robots, don't use open directory information. Instead, use what we've provided you. So one of the things that you can use, one of the tools, and so this is a lot of tools, this week's a lot of tools that you're going to use. One of the tools that you're going to use is google.com Webmaster Tools. Now, you're not going to be able to access it because again, your client per se, but I can provide that to you, and I will provide that to you so that you can access this information. But what Webmaster Tools provide you are things like crawl error reports, and so this gives you an instant comparison between what's live and what the search engine is seeing. And so what this can help you find is what we call lost pages. So these are pages that maybe you created a page and it's not getting indexed, or you have a page that is existing, but then you redirected and this page is floating out there and it's not connected to anything. Likewise, you can find a page not found report. So this is any broken links that you have on your website. A lot of times it's human error, to be honest with you, and this is why, again, I'm so particular about your file naming, because you have to get in the habit of making sure that your pages are named exactly the way they're supposed to be named. But it also can be a programming error. So your coders can make this mistake, which most of us are not coders, so that you can't point your finger at somebody else. It will give you crawl stats, so how often Googlebot crawls your site. And if Googlebot's not crawling, you may have no incoming links, and that's a bad thing. I'm going to give you some tools that will help you determine how many incoming links you have to make sure that that's not the case. Search queries provides the visibility of your site. It shows keywords, it shows the number of times the site has appeared to searchers for specific keywords, which we call impressions. It shows the number of click-throughs your listing has attracted for that keyword, which are clicks. And then you can determine the click-through rate, right? So click-through rate is percentage of clicks compared to impressions. And so there we see the definition of impressions and clicks. So you can actually do that using that information, which is very cool. So some tools that you can use. And we'll take a look at some of these right now. And so the first one comes to us from developers.google.com. You can go on to Google Developers and find all sorts of really cool products. We're going to use several of them this week. But I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the page speed insights. And so I'm just going to type our URL right in here. Just going to analyze it. And then it gives me a rating not only for mobile, but also our desktop. And you see that we're performing slightly better in our desktop than our mobile. It then goes through and tells you, and I'm going to scroll pretty quickly, but it will also tell you how to fix it, which is super exciting, especially if you know how to use CSS, which I do not, by the way. That would be for coders. But as you go through here, it tells you how to fix them, what you need to do. So why would I care about this? Well, you need to care about this because these would be really great things for putting in our report to our client. And the showing how to fix would be things that you could potentially put in your appendix in your recommendation section. So you could say, how to fix speed issues. Please link to, please see Appendix A, and you could cut and paste some of this stuff in that documentation. Same thing with the mobile. It goes through and does the same things, okay? And it goes actually down to user experience. And so when you're reporting this, though, you don't want to just put all the bad things, right? Consider fixings. You actually do also want to put the good news, right? So here's all the things that we're doing correctly, okay? And so by doing this, not only are you assisting your client, but this first time by doing this, you're going to learn about this. And again, I know that each of you guys are dividing up some of this stuff among your group members, but I really encourage you, especially for the things that I'm going to point out in these videos, I really encourage you as an individual to run through this. It doesn't mean you have to write the report, but just so that you understand, when you click on developers at Google and you go into the speed report and you click on optimizing images, so it talks about how to fix them. And again, we're not CSS people, but it might give you some information in terms of, oh, look, okay, so why is this broken? Or, down here, 5 past rules. Oh, look, I should be avoiding plugins and avoiding this and configuring the viewports and size, right? So you have some more information and some learning to do from this exercise. So I encourage you to do that on your own. So one of the other things that you can do, remember earlier we talked about comparing the sites that Google's actually crawling to the sites that are on your webpage. Well, let's say that you find a couple sites that aren't actually being crawled. One of the things that you can do, or maybe you have an entire site that's not being crawled, is you can go to google.com/webmasters/tools/submit-URL. You don't have to put this in. And again, that's on your PowerPoint as a URL as well. So if you look at this, there's the URL in case you forget. But you can put in a URL here, click that you're not a robot, and submit it. And what this will do is actually submit that site to Google. Do you have to do that? No, but if you're noticing that it's not getting crawled, that might be something that you want to consider doing. And so the last site that we're going to take a look at today is the Webmaster Tools that we talked about before. And so you're not going to have access to this, but this is information that I can provide you. And what we're looking at is actually the Ridge Schools statistics here. But I just want to show you kind of what it looked like in the back end. And so when you get into the Search Console of Webmaster Tools, so here you'll have all the properties that you have access to listed. This is the only one I have through my Mercyhurst account. But if I go ahead and click on this, it'll give you an idea of kind of the current status. And so obviously green is good. So there are no crawl errors right now. And you can click on that and it will give you some more information relating to any crawl errors that might have occurred in the past. It also shows any URL errors that might be occurring, and which we actually have quite a few. And so this is something that if I were talking to the web analyst, these would be things that I would be asking. We look at smartphone errors, and so we do see that we have a smartphone error here that's happening. It looks like it started in June. and is continuing on, and so we would want to make sure that that got taken care of as well. Now some of these are easy fixes and some of these are a little bit more complicated, so just because you have errors doesn't mean that people aren't working on it. So as we look through here, you can go to the dashboard and take a look at kind of what's available here. So we already saw the site errors, crawl errors, we have search analytics. Now we can go a lot deeper than this, and you'll see when we actually get into the content here. But you can look at impressions and click-through rates. We talk about that, what the position is in terms of ranking, queries, pages, countries, devices. So you have quite a bit of analytics here. How people are searching for you, this is really, really important, okay? So people are looking for Mercer's Intelligence, Intelligence Studies, Tom Ridge School, the Ridge School, CIRAT, right? So we have what we call a long tail, and that means that, so if we look at how many, I'm going to see if I can get this over here onto one screen, so bear with me here just for a second. Let's see our PowerPoint peeking through here. So if we look at this, we can see the top queries, right? So we had 87 clicks, and this is within the time period of a few months here. 87 clicks, and there it is, graphed out, right? So we can see that this is from August 16th to September. We can then break it down further in terms of countries. We can look at devices that were used to search this, and so we begin to do what's called segmenting. And so we can say things like, by filtering down here, right, all the people who searched for Mercer's Intelligence came from the country of X, or people who search for Mercer's Intelligence tend to do so from their telephone. And then what we do is we can compare that to some of these other keywords here, right? And so as we look at this, we notice that 87, wow, as a percentage of all of the clicks, 87 is quite a bit. In fact, it might be more than half. But what's interesting, and I use the term long tail, is that all of these represent quite a bit. In fact, if I add up all of these records, and by the way, this continues to go, right? So I can continue to hit, you can't see it here, but I can continue to hit next page, and there's lots of them. But all of these long tails actually really make up probably more than half of what I'm looking for, because it looks like there's 1,419. So if you do the math in terms of 87 divided by 100 or 1,419, you come up with a percentage, or a percentage of clicks, and so compared to the whole. And that's really much more important than understanding, and here we'll do that right now, 87 divided by 419. So it actually only comprises about 6% of all the clicks that were had between August 16th and September 12th. And so this is actually a pretty small percentage. And so what I don't want you to do is get hung up on the top 7, right, or the top 10. You actually want to look through all of these to see if there's any patterns, to see if there's any differences, and things that might be of interest to you. And so you look here, and we have the Ridge School and Tom Ridge School. And what the question that I would be asking is, what's different between the users who search for the Ridge School from the people who search for the Tom Ridge School, or Tom Ridge School? And so words matter, misspellings matter, abbreviations matter, and most importantly, conversions matter. And so I would want to study this to see not only where they're from, but did the Ridge School perform better in terms of results than Tom Ridge School? And if so, where did these people come from? Or where do these people come from? So that I have a better idea of what I'm looking at. Okay? And so again, you can see that this is like the rabbit hole, right? You can spend all day doing this. You can spend months doing this. I'm just trying to give you a general overview of what kinds of things you can do with this. Okay, so as we dig down, we can look at links to our site. And this will provide us all of the inbound links coming to our site. And so we see that we have 7,972. That's good. We want lots of links. Where are the majority of them coming from? Well, it looks like blogspot.com. Okay, and then we have the Bridge School. This is most linked. So from these sites, these are the things that are linked. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look at all of these and see if there's any patterns, if there's anything interesting. And not only that, if I click on blogspot.com, it will then dig down and show me how it's linked. I can download that and study it. I can look at sample links, latest links, but it will show me what the link is that's going to the content. Now, why do I care about that? Well, if you remember in your reading, we want to make sure our keywords are actually showing up in the link copy if possible. Now we see intelligence, Erie, PA, the Ridge School. We have a couple others if you dig down here. But that's really important that we understand not only who's linking to us, but where are they coming from. And so one of the things I might choose to do, if I find out that this website is something that I like and has a lot of credibility and we have a lot of links coming from it to us, I might choose to ask them to do more direct naming in their text link, right? So that instead of just, apply, which by the way, this is our blog, instead of just apply, it's applied to Mercyhurst Intelligence Studies program, and that way all of those words are going to start showing up in my my search results, which again will help me rank higher for people who are looking. Internal links, this just shows the links that are within our website. We can look at, there's lots of things here, and I'll move these over here. Manual actions, international targeting, which we don't have any of, but you potentially can target based on language. Mobility, usability, so it talks about our problems with our mobile usage, and that's something that we're currently addressing. Any crawl errors, we decided that there weren't many. So there's no site errors, there's no URL errors, but we do have a couple crawl errors right now that we're working on. We're not set up for Google for crawl parameters, URL parameters. There's no sitemaps listed on this, but we actually do have a sitemap listed. It's a .xml file. Now you can add a sitemap, and that's something that we're planning on doing. And you can test your sitemaps and see if they'll help perform. And remember, your sitemap is basically telling the search engine, hey, this is how we're organized. And that's probably pretty important for them to understand. You can look at security issues, which we don't have any, and then they give you some other interesting resources, some of which we've already talked about. So when you're looking at this, these are definitely good resources for you to be taking part in. So the next thing that you're going to want to take a look at is the guidelines related to webmasters. And so webmaster guidelines are here. This will, and I know we talked about this at the beginning of the term, but I'm bringing this back up. Google tells us what they're looking for in terms of sitemaps, in terms of parameters, in terms of links, in terms of site content. They spell it all out. And so you want to make sure to read this because it's going to give you some hints of things or 4 things that you're going to want to talk about in your report. And of course, if you do this in the real world, things that you're going to want to talk about with your clients. I've uploaded a document in terms of SEO. We're going to talk a little bit about SEO and some specific things and elements, but there is an SEO guidelines document on Blackboard for you to take a look at. Another thing that you're going to want to look at is something we call W3C accessibility guidelines. And so there's a couple of different things that you can use. One is a general guidelines tool, and you're going to need this for your report for the next section for your client. But there's also a tool that you can use. Now the tool might be a little bit too complicated for you guys because W3C is actually really for coders, but from a marketing standpoint you are able to glean some information from it in terms of color, in terms of font size and things like that. And so what I encourage you to do is read through the guidelines and then see what you can figure out in terms of the tool. See if you can go through the process and actually make a recommendation or I guess fill out the report for your client. So So the other thing that we do with SEO keywords and content are tests. And so you're going to actually do this as well for your report. You're going to test it, test your website with humans, actually. So you're going to start with a task, and then you're going to set up a walkthrough where you walk them through how to do something, or you're going to watch them walk through how to do something. You don't walk them through it. So you're going to ask them to go and find meal plans at Mercyhurst, and you're going to start them out on the homepage, and you're going to let them go, and you're going to watch them attempt to find it. There's two things that this is going to tell us. Number one, is our information easy to find? Number two, are they following the process, the logical process that we want them to find the information at, or is there a different process that not only one user finds it at, but maybe multiple users are finding the information at? So watch as they begin to click, because that's going to tell you about their logic. And so if I say, go find a meal plan, they might be looking for, you know, I don't know, dining services, right? But because they can't find it, because it's not a link off of our homepage, they maybe go to services. And I don't even know if that's a link, right? But so they would go to services, and if they didn't find it there, then where do they go? And so what you want to do is you might even have them talk you through their logic. And you're taking notes. You're taking copious notes about not only what they're saying, if they're saying anything, but where they're going. Now, in this process, you do not taint the research. So you do not then give them information about how to find it. You just let them go through the process on their own. So as I mentioned before, I did give you some basic SEO. Again, that's search engine optimization. And why do we care about search engine optimization? Because without search engine optimization, people can't find us. So when people search for great universities, we want Mercyhurst, maybe if that's our business goal, we want Mercyhurst to come up as number one, or at least in the search rankings at all. What I want to do is I just listed out, here are some of the things that you need to be paying attention to as you're reading through that SEO brief on Blackboard. You're going to be looking for why accurate page titles make a difference, description meta tags and how they influence SEO, the structure of URLs, which we've already talked about, navigation, how that impacts things, quality content and service, having good anchor text. Remember, we talked about the anchor text. That's when I go to link from something to something else. That anchor text needs to have keywords in it. Optimizing images, making sure that the images can be searched, because sometimes on some browsers images don't load, but what does load is that copy. And so you want not only the search engines to find it, but that's an accessibility issue as well. Head tags, so these are the headers of your document, and then the robots.txt, which is how the robots find us. And so pay attention to all of those as you're reading that document. So a couple things though, you want to avoid using the business name as the title tag. And so the title tag is part of that metadata, right? And so just so we're all on the same page, let's take a look at a website. Maybe if I can get one to load here for us. There's Blackboard. That's not the one I want. So let's go ahead and take a look at mercyhurst.edu. And while the page is loading, I'm actually working in Chrome right now, but this works for pretty much any browser. You can also go up to usually View and then Page Source. But if I go ahead and control click on the website, and so I'm on a Mac, so I'm hitting control click, but if you're on a PC, you would just hit the right click. I can go down here to View Page Source. And what View Page Source does, again, just to make sure we're all on the same page, is it shows us the source. Okay, and so when I'm talking about metadata, right, or head or URLs, these are the kinds of things that I'm talking about. Okay, it's the code from behind the scenes. So all this code, all this what we call gibberish, right, that actually makes the website that we see, which is this here, not the white, this. Okay, and so when we're talking about metadata, that's what we're referring to. Okay. So when we talk about the title tags, right, so in the code there are things called title tags, and the title tags show up on the top of the page, for example. You want to avoid using the business name as the title tag. Instead, you want to use a more complete description of what that page includes. You want to consider the length of the title tag. Use short, complete thoughts, but you also want to use it fully. And so you want to make sure that you're looking at the title tags and how it's showing up in your document on the web page, and making sure that you're using all of the content, but no more, and not, you don't want it to be short. And one of the guidelines that they talk about is 15 to 18 characters, and so you might want to kind of keep that in the back of your mind as well. Now, using meta tags, again, found behind what the visitor sees, you can use those, and that helps us with keywords. Your meta tags should not be automatically set, and that's something that content management systems, that's a CMS, you'll hear that used a lot. Content management systems are really easy ways for people who don't have a lot of coding experience to build websites. But these CMSs are developed, they're developed by programmers. In a lot of cases, the programmers who are not marketers will default their settings to have duplicate content because it's easier, right? So they'll just auto fill in the meta tags with the title tag. And that actually throws errors in Google Analytics as well as in Webmaster Tools, saying that, hey, listen, you should really go in and customize this. But if you're not looking at web tools, webmaster tools, then you wouldn't see that. So you want to make sure that the meta tags are actually descriptive of the page. You also want to use the hyperlinks, hypertext links, or the anchor links, and you want to actually name them appropriate things and keywords so that the search engines are actually going to rank you using those. Like I said here, links are the currency of authority in search engine rankings. So why not use our hyperlink or our hypertext links to help us with that? So I gave you an example of what a link looks like. I did show you the code a minute ago, but this is what a link would look like, right? So not with a dash here. It begins with the less than sign. So we have a space href equal sign, and then you have an open quote and what the destination URL is, and then the end quote, a greater than sign, and then if I were to plug this into a website, what it would read is linked anchor text, and this would actually be underlined, and it would go to this destination URL. Okay, so this is important because sometimes when we have broken links, we have to do a little troubleshooting on our own to figure out what's going on. And so maybe we go in and we find that the destination URL isn't there. It's empty. Well, that's obviously an issue, right? Or we find that this doesn't have a space, right? That's how specific web pages are. You have to make sure they're exact, okay? So as you're taking a look at this, this is something that you probably want to memorize because this format here, so that you can do some basic troubleshooting. Alt tags we talked about. On every image you need to have an alt tag. An alt tag tells the computer and the search engine and your website, hey, this is what the name of this image is. File names, you want to make sure that they're named appropriate, and again, use keywords. It will help with search engine optimization. Use your headlines to describe what's on the page, and again, make them keyword heavy for keywords that are searched by your consumers. And then in HTML, which is the code behind, you want to use headings instead of, and I know this is probably getting a little too complex for most of you, but you want to use the H2, H1, H3, H4 guidelines. And so you want to use these to describe it. And what this does is this tells the computer, hey, I already have presets for H2. And so maybe your H2 is 14-point font, bold, blue. H3 is 12-point font, bold, blue. H4 is 12-point, not bold, so normal, blue. And so all of these have parameters that are set. They're called styles. And you want to use these because the search engine speaks this language. They know what H2, H3, H4. And though we don't know the exact algorithm of the search engines, we do know that they give high priority to headings. And so the search engine sees these as headings. They're going to rank the words that are in these higher than they would other copy on your website. And so let's take a look at an example of kind of search engine at work here. I'm going to move it down here. Okay, so what I did here is I went through and I searched on Yahoo over here and Google. I think I have those in the right order over here. And what I wanted to do is or actually this is Bing on the right hand side. I wanted to see how the search engines compared. And so what you can see as you're looking at the results is that they look pretty much the same. In fact, most of the websites are shared. They're not in the exact same order, but most of them are shared. The other thing that you'll notice is that Wikipedia is one of the top results. And why that is Wikipedia is one of the ideal sites. It fits most of the criteria for good search engine rankings. It has prominent placements of keywords and lots of incoming links from other websites. And so it's considered an authority site. And so let's look at that site. It also has very well developed content, and it's organized in subject areas with citations to many other research related sites, which are ranked very high. And so the content uses markup, which is that H1, H2, to distinguish headings and subheadings and topics within the content of the page. And so, if you look at the top of the page, influenza, if you look at the code, this has an H1 tag. And then, as you probably know down here, with any kind of Wikipedia, then you go into subheads, and those are all the next level of headings is contained in H2, and then the next one is in H3. And so they do a very good job of using the language of the search engine, and as such, it's ranked very high. And so I went through and I searched Wikipedia. So this is Wikipedia's site on influenza, and I wanted to look at the page links. And what I used moz.com, which is another great resource, and I wanted to see how many links were coming into the page. And we see 4,717 links from 973 different domains coming in, 49 in fact in the last 60 days. And so what's interesting about that is, again, 4,717, we have quite a few links coming in, which makes them a very, very good candidate or an authority on the subject and just in general. So think about this again like dating, right? So Wikipedia is somebody that everybody wants to date. In fact, 4,717 sites said, hey, listen, check me out, right? We like you. We like your profile. We're going to link to you. Wikipedia does an okay job of giving backlinks, right? So then they link to other sites as well. But Wikipedia, because it has so many incoming links, not just for influenza, but for so many other things, it becomes an authority on a lot of different things, and it continues to rank high. And so again, as you build those links, those total links, the better your site's going to be. So the other thing that influences SEO are these keywords, and I keep talking about them, right? And I want to give you a couple tips before we kind of close out this section here. You want to think about calling it what it is, and we use the principle of don't make me think. And so I gave you an example over here of butt paste, right? And so it's actually an ointment for diaper rash. And so the typical parent is searching for diaper rash ointment, but when you look at this, that phrase only appears once on the diapers.com product page. In the navigation, the product appears under the category of creams and ointments. The headings, descriptions, images, and context of the page all surround this butt paste concept and not the function of the product. And so this is where marketing can get in the way of itself. Guys, listen, I know we're all about branding, right? But if you don't think like the consumer and what they're searching for, you're not going to be indexed in the database in the way that your consumer is thinking. Unless they're going in and searching for butt paste, they're not going to find you because you're not going to rank high enough because you don't have enough keyword density. That means the number of times that your keywords are mentioned to rank. And so, the product's great, except nobody's going to find it, which obviously is an issue. And you also have to remember that searchers rely on really simple phrases. very few of us go into Google and type in long sentences. We're typing 3-4 words max. And so you need to figure out what those 3 to 4 words are. And 3 to 4 words in multiples. So think in multiples, right? So the multiple 3 to 4 word phrases that you want to be known for and that you want people to find you for, and focus in on those and make sure that those are built into your page tags or your page titles and your meta descriptions, and your H1s, H2s, those kinds of things, and then obviously within the content of your site itself. And so let's take a look at this. The other thing with the marketing, you have to stop thinking like a marketing person sometimes. So we want to think like a marketing person in some ways, right? But not in this case, because we would all be about brand, right? Making sure that the but paste term was out there. And we also don't want to think about it in terms of these really vivid descriptors that we love to use in advertising and marketing, right? It's not just a red sofa, it's a wine sofa, right? These really rich, vivid words. Well, that doesn't really play well because people don't search for wine sofa. They search for red sofa or blue sofa, not, aqua sofa. And so we see that proven here. I mean, and you can test this with whatever you'd like to, but people tend to search for more basic terms, and then they get more specific the further along in their search they go. But you'll see here that only 70 people on average search for wine sofa per month, but red sofa has 6,600 people searching for it. And so you have to figure out the psychology of who's searching for what and what they're searching for. Again, most of the time, it's simple phrases that have more generic terms. So here are some tools that you can use to really dig down into the keywords. So here's one. This is a very short link, but what it's going to do is go to your AdWords site, Google Insights. I'm going to show you some examples of that, and then there's another one through Microsoft that you can check out. And so using keywords, I gave you some examples here in the last 4 slides. Some of the insights that you'll get from this, if you search for soccer, you can see, and we've talked about kind of the long tails here, right? So soccer, 6.2 million. But what I'm most interested in is what are the percentage of the 6.2 million search results for soccer compared to the rest of the searches. The other thing that I'm looking at in these is are there different ways that people are searching. So we have history soccer, history of soccer. Well, history soccer gets 74,000, but history of soccer only gets 70. And so it might not make a huge difference here, but look at soccer jersey gets 125,000 plus. Soccer jerseys only gets 81,000. And so even leaving off an S can make a big difference. And these people searching for soccer jersey versus soccer jerseys might have different buying habits. And so you have to consider them different populations, different segments, if you will. So again, here's another example. When you search using AdWords tools, you'll find things like categories, right? So I want to search for keywords, and I search the word vacation. And here's some of the categories that vacations could be searched under. But again, under keywords, you can see that family vacations ranks higher than family vacation. Then I can also take a look at, and I did a search for cheap vacations, and you see vacations higher than vacation, right? Significantly, guys, 74,000 versus 3,600 makes a big difference. But then I want to know, when is the peak time for vacations, right? When are people really searching for this? And I don't know if you guys can see this, but interestingly enough, and this would have been my hypothesis, right? Right after Christmas, right? People are searching for vacations. Maybe it's a bonus check, but I think it has to do with the weather. I can also drill down even further into geography, and this is using Google Insights here. This is using Google AdWords, okay? So those are the 2 tools that we talked about. But what's really cool is I can then trend, and by the way, this is just a type-in box, right? I can trend cheap vacation, cheap vacations, and cheap vacation packages. And it will show me the different trends for each of these words, okay? The last two slides just relating to content. So now let's put all these pieces together, right? We have keywords, we have links, and we have site architecture, and we have different ways of displaying things. But at the end of the day, content is king. You know, we could follow all of the SEO rules, but if you don't have good content, people aren't going to stay on your site. People aren't going to buy your product. And so a couple of points, and some of you guys are comm majors, so I'm expecting that this is a very natural fit for you, but just in case, and for the rest of you. In writing content, you want to create a customer experience. Okay, this isn't just about, and I shouldn't have used the word writing content. In creating content, it's not just about words on a page. That's brochures. It's about having videos, and it's about having audio, and it's about having pictures, and it's about having infographics and interactivities, interesting dialogue between people, customer reviews. You want to make sure that you're telling your story and telling it from a personal standpoint. So it's one thing if Megan Wiscavage, who's marketing director of Mercyhurst, sits down and writes some copy. It's another thing if I tell that same copy from the eyes of a student who's currently going to Mercyhurst and I put their picture up and I have a video, a supplemental video. That makes a bigger difference. You also need to explain to people, and in the content, you always want to be thinking about the consumer. And consumers want to know what the return on their investment is. So they're paying, $47,000 for an education at Mercyhurst. What are they getting back? You also can test the messages, right? So it's not just a guessing game like, oh boy, okay, I hope the consumer likes this. When you actually talk to the consumer and say, go on, read this page and tell me what you think, you get real results. And there's ways to do that pretty quickly online through some surveys. You also want to keep in mind that, and I guess my last point for this section is that you want to keep in mind most people are skimmers. And so skimmers read headings, bullet points, and text links. By the way, this sounds a whole lot like robots, right? And so people are going on and kind of scanning your page, kind of just like the Google bot is, right? They're looking at your headings to decide whether they want to read more. If they do want to read more, we're busy people, so they're going to scan bullet points to decide if they want to really get in and dig deeper. And then they look at text links because they're blue and they're underlined and they stand out. Okay, so if you understand how people read, sometimes we can write our content and our copy and position our images and position our videos a little bit better. Okay, and I know that this is kind of high level and pretty quick, but I think it gives you a pretty good overview of what we're talking about.